Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Art for Everyone podcast, where you have an artist, his friends, and some guy trying to learn, just like everyone here is trying to learn what is art, what's good art, what's different between that art and that art. And I feel like on this journey, I think this is episode 15 or 16. And I feel like so take it away, Michael.
I mean, I feel like I'm learning too. And some days I feel like a day oneer myself because I am a professional artist. I do this for a living. But as we were talking pre show, kind of behind the scenes, sometimes you still feel like a day one person. But today I am happy to be able to introduce you to Jarod Farver. So, Jarod, let me go ahead and just give you a minute to introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Vinnie, you kind of sound like you could be an artist after 15 episodes. So don't even worry about what you got going on the rest of your life. My name is Jarod Farver. I'm a contemporary abstract painter. Recently moved from San Diego to Gilbert, Arizona, and painting for two galleries out here, showing at two galleries here, and one in San Diego still. And this is a full-time thing for me, and everything's up and down like it always is, but things are good right now, and that's it.
Well, I have to touch on something you mentioned and say, Vinny, I believe that your art sales for the past month or two are probably about the same as mine.
Yeah.
Hey, Jarod. So something that we talked about, I think, on the last episode was the idea that I think, or maybe it was a couple episodes, I'm not sure. Sometimes they blend together. But Michael's like, sometimes he doesn't feel his art is relatively appreciated here in the galleries that are here. How do you feel your art has been taken compared to San Diego, compared to Gilbert, Arizona?
Yeah, so there's not much going on here in Gilbert. But in Phoenix and Scottsdale, especially Scottsdale, there's a huge, a couple blocks of galleries, all really nice, all expensive. They all do really well. And a lot of them rely on just people walking by that are on vacation. If it's cold wherever they live and they come here for our winter, it's always nicer. They rely on those people. I'm getting sidetracked, but it's going much better here than it was in San Diego, which is weird because San Diego is always nice and has great weather.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's maybe more saturated there. You also do have to be in the right gallery. If Michael went down to Prospect Street and got into one of those amazing, expensive galleries down there, that could change his life. But it totally depends on where you're at. And I'm sure San Diego's making lots of art sales, and it's just odd when it's your time. It's your time, and it may not be this month, maybe next month, and maybe 2 years from now. And if you stop, you're never going to know. But it was nice to see coming out here. I already had one gallery set up, and when I came out here, they just kept moving and grooving, and I've been busy with them since. And then recently got into another gallery in Scottsdale that's great. But it was definitely eye-opening to move out here and take a chance. And see that it's going, way better. It's going 10 times better than what it was in San Diego. But again, you do have to be in the right gallery. And, it's like economy. It could be anything. I'm sure real estate's the same thing. It's just up and down. But it was nice to see that coming to a new city helped out. And it also gave me the confidence to reach out to other cities, all over the place, and just and see what happens there. You never know where your art is gonna take off, and it may not be in the city that you live in.
And you're not the first artist that I've heard say that a move to another city, or I've even heard from the artist community about sort of an exodus from San Diego. And I would never say anything negative about the San Diego art scene, but the market here, I don't feel it is as strong as it is in other cities, like you mentioned, Scottsdale. And it's interesting because it is such a beautiful place here. And I've had some people speculate that maybe that's the reason, because there's so much to do here. There's so much fun. You can go out to the beach, you can go out and do this and that. Then maybe there's not as much attention on the art. But I have heard a lot of people talking about moving out of San Diego or California that are artists and moving to places that are adjacent, like Oregon, and how the market's growing there, or to Arizona and how the market's growing there. And something brought to my attention recently by you and a number of other artists that I could have created sort of my own dilemma by not seeking something outside my present city. And maybe I need to look and expand to find these other markets, because any artist out there, if your work is not moving right now, it doesn't mean that it's not good work. It doesn't mean that it can't sell. You just might not be finding the right collector base or the right gallery or the right market. And so you may just need to explore and find that elsewhere.
Yeah. And going back on talking about La Jolla, because La Jolla does kind of remind me of Scottsdale a little bit, as far as, the art galleries that are there. There's a lot there. But most of them aren't going to have a San Diego artist in them. So you're looking at art that's, whether it's $20,000 or it's $2,000, and it's a small piece. It's from an artist from LA. It's from an artist from New York, or, somewhere else. So La Jolla, I don't think as much money as there is there, you would think that'd be a good place for you. But, every time I've gone down there, every artist that is in there, in these expensive, galleries are from somewhere else. So maybe that's the problem.
Not really showing a lot of local stuff, you think?
Yeah. So, and I know, some of the local spots, like Sparks does that. The other one, Edelman, and there's a handful that really do cater to San Diego art scene. And I used to work at Blick when I first moved to San Diego, and everybody who worked there was an artist, and was like, a couple guys had a pretty big name in San Diego, and that was kind of like an underground art scene. And then if you got into a gallery, it was like, it was a big deal, and not very many people did it. And so, again, I think there's only a few that kind of cater to San Diego artists, and then 80% of them are selling art, art from other cities, So San Diego may not be a local artist, spot.
Yeah, and it's something that I'm trying to navigate my way through too, because it's like I went to school in LA and I came back to San Diego because this is where I grew up. And my thought process was I wanted to help cultivate the art scene in the city that I'm from.
Yeah.
LA, obviously, huge art scene, but I felt like, it'll be easier to get known and to be a force in a smaller art scene. And I feel like from when I finished school in 2006 to now, I feel like the art scene it's grown. There's been like a little bit of a roller coaster, times that it seemed like it was really starting to pop, and then times it kind of went back down. Like they got rid of Ray at Night and some of the local things, but there's still things popping up. But it's also getting harder and harder to keep those brick and mortar galleries alive these days. And that's one of the things that you and I have talked about, because you have worked on the online presence and sort of a distribution of like canvas prints and stuff, because that's become such a big part of the market these days for artists and in the art world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've navigated all over, to see what's working and what's not working. And again, always got a side gig here and there when I needed to, and, bartended, and, that's the other thing. It's like, if you could get a bartending job in San Diego, it's like, wow, how'd you do that? It's like, I've told you this many times. It's like you want to be an artist and get in a gallery. You want to be a barber. You want to be a bartender. It's like, get in line if you're in San Diego, because there's so many people that want to do the cool stuff. And, it's like nobody has a regular job there. Everybody's having a good time. And, enjoying the weather. And so, everybody's fighting for these cool, jobs, and it makes it harder for everybody else,
Yeah, I feel like these other people are making it though. I want to make it too. I want to make this all work. And like as a professional artist, like there are times that it has worked. This is the life of an artist, and I think part of the journey to success as an artist is the success is not always consistent, or it's not something that you reach and that it's always there. It's a everlasting journey that you're trying to navigate, because there will be lulls and there will be ups, there will be downs, and it doesn't necessarily, like, you can sometimes make your entire fortune as an artist for the year, maybe in like 1 month or 1 week of sales, but you may hit this tremendous drought for weeks or months as well, and that can be tremendously difficult.
Yeah,
emotionally, as well as financially. It's
definitely hard, and you're on your own. It's like, man, I have a wife that works and has a good job, and it's just, if you're doing it on your own, it's definitely hard. And then it's also like one of those things where when you're down and you don't have any sales, that's when another gallery reaches out to you and says, hey, can you paint a handful of things for me, and let's get you set up, and make sure that they're really big. And now your pockets are, empty, and you got to figure out a way to get 6, huge canvases and pay for that, pay for the paint, do all this stuff. And I know everybody's got credit cards and whatever, but it's just, those are the times when I get stuff, is when things are bad. And then I have to either make that decision to, say, no, this isn't a good time, or, dig somewhere else for money and make it happen.
Well, and I feel like, Vinnie, the real estate field is kind of very much, the more we talk about it, the more I feel like the real estate field is very parallel to art, in that you might experience some of these things as well, or like realtors in other cities may have better markets at times because, like, maybe it's a more desired area, or it's just easier to move properties in a certain area. Is that the case?
Yeah, it's the case, and I appreciate you getting me on. My connection is really bad, and so I'm trying to switch it up. That's why I haven't really talked too much, because it's a delay when I talk. And so, but I totally agree with you. I'm gonna jump on in a second though.
Okay, so let's, Jared, we'll pick it up, but you had a couple really good things, because one of the reasons we do this podcast, it's not a traditional interview podcast. It's not like, hey, like, answer this, answer that, like, tell me about this. We want to provide guidance for other artists and other people in the industry, and bring on professionals and gallerists and whatnot. And you brought up some things that I think would be helpful to talk about. And one of the things that you brought up was pricing for you versus pricing for the economy.
Yeah. Now I have a delay. Maybe not. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I mean, again, when times are tough or the economy is bad and you're not making any sales, you're wondering if what your prices are like. Are they too high, or what's going on? Should I lower them? And then if you lower them, do you look bad? Does that make you, look bad? Does it make you go down as an artist to a, so, yeah, so I've struggled with that too. I mean, it's like, you want a sale, so that $6,000 piece, couldn't it be 3,000? It could. So
yeah, I mean, you're talking my language right now, because I look at like my prime period for sales, and it was like 2014 to 2016, 2017, and stuff was flying. I almost couldn't sell it fast enough. I was selling things for very respectable price points, and I started to get a little bit of an ego, I'll admit. And I felt like, I'm doing it. I felt like, I could price things really high, or like that. I was going to be set. I'm like, I'm going to be a millionaire, and, I've got things figured out, and I've got it established enough that, there's no way that this is just going to tank. And I don't want to say that it tanked, because it didn't, and I'm still doing what I do. But like, that was like a golden period for me, where things were just moving at very respectable. I could kind of just say what things cost, and people wouldn't even question it. I'd have regular sales. And recently the economy, I think, took a little bit of a dive, and particularly here in San Diego is the most expensive city in the country right now. And like you said, you moved to Arizona, so I think that kind of changes up the dynamics a little bit. But like here, you know, as an artist, you have to manage your overhead, your costs of operation on top of selling the art. And so you have to factor all that into the equation. And it's not just like before before people would pay, you know, a certain amount for the pieces. Now people don't want to spend as much, but also the cost of materials and everything are significantly higher. So it's making it tremendously more difficult for the artists in some cases, I think.
Yeah. And most galleries want you to price everything at the same price. And so you might have one gallery that's selling everything, and the other gallery's got the same prices on everything, and nothing's going on. And you still, you know, you just always go back and forth with price. And I know I do. And then, yeah, again, like if you just question the economy and I think if you can make those deals, you know, if you have that conversation with the gallery owner and say, you know, if someone comes in here and likes this $6,000 piece, but it's a little too expensive for them, like, please call me, and
yes,
you know, I'm willing to do that. It doesn't need to be said out loud to everybody, but yeah. I'm always down to make a deal instead of lowering prices, you know. And
do you lower your price? Now I'm back, so you're gonna probably hear more of me now. Sorry, guys. So do you lower your prices based off of the area?
Your prices are your prices as far as who I paint for. So both galleries out here, sorry, my dog's barking. Both galleries out here are the same price as the gallery in San Diego. And if I get a gallery in Dallas, Texas, they have to be the same price. Because
what about the piece sizes then? Do you do like stuff like smaller pieces in areas that maybe have a relatively low price point compared to another area that maybe has a higher price point? You do bigger pieces?
Yeah, you kind of go that route. A place that can sell a huge painting for 10, 12 grand, you make sure they get those sizes. And then, you know, yeah, you definitely go by size. And that was another thing I was going to talk about is not selling in a gallery. Sometimes you're in whether it's a cafe or a real estate office or a gym. If, again, you have to think about that, and you need to give those smaller pieces usually to those walls because it's not the big fancy gallery, you know what I mean? But yeah, for the most part, everything needs to be about the same price. But to go around that, yeah, you can do smaller pieces and stuff like that.
Yeah, especially because we're in the digital age now. And so it's like people can look up your work and they'll be able to see, like, if you have, like, say, a 48-inch by 48-inch piece at one gallery for $4,800, and then you have another one at another gallery in another spot for 10% of the price, it's going to raise some questions. Now, I do admittedly have like some marquee pieces that I price higher. So like I may have pieces that are the same size that there's a variance in price, but there's a justification to it. I won't be like, oh, well, this is going to go to this gallery over here and they generally sell for less, so I'm going to lower the price. But like Jarod said, also, a lot of times what I will tell my galleries is if somebody makes an offer, let's make it a win-win, because I would rather take home some money, get new supplies, clear out some space, you know, have some positive energy, keep things flowing.
Yeah, put something new on the wall, you know. It's like, yeah. And I think maybe, you know, I still consider being an emerging artist. You know, I'm still trying to figure this whole thing out and get it going. But man, what was I going to say? I think when you are further on in your career, I'm pretty sure you can, you know, you have a 36, 48 in different places, and each one can literally, you know, one could be $6 grand, one could be 20 grand. You know, I think at that point you can kind of do what you want and be, you know, in different prices. But as far as right now, I'm just keeping it simple and, you know.
Well, what's that? I mean, well, we talked about that last week, right? It was like the 3 stages: emerging, something
emerging, mid-career, and established. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what would have to happen for you to become a mid-career person?
That's such a, like, crazy question because I haven't even really thought about it. That would literally just be, I mean, you would need some backup, papers of like things
Is
that
it
have
a
happened in a
number?
row over time or something. Yeah, and sales. That maybe this is all in my head. I've never even gone down this road, but I think it would be something I felt, and that I was in, multiple galleries in different cities.
You are. See, that's what I'm so good. It's such a head thing because you like Chiffon was talking about it last week, and she was saying what she thought it would take, and you kind of mentioned that you're doing some of the things that she thought that would be required to do it. Because like you've got a gallery in San Diego, you got 2 galleries in Arizona. You've been showing in galleries for over a decade because you and I met about a decade ago at Alexander Salazar. So I mean, you've done all the things, you've checked all the boxes.
Yeah, I guess I'm going off in my head as like I don't know, like an actor or something that's like only been in 3 movies. I'm in 3 galleries. It's like in my mind, 5, 6 galleries. And again, I guess things wouldn't have to be selling, out the door left and right. But in my mind, it would be like, yeah, every month, like I would say, yeah, I'm kind of going off of numbers. Like what I make monthly or yearly is like needs to be 3 times what it is, and then I'll be like, all right, like I'm just making that decision on my own, I think.
See, but that's where it gets interesting because, like, again, when we talked about this last week, like Van Gogh, one of the greatest artists ever, not selling much work while he was alive, but one of the greatest ever, was clearly an art. Like you couldn't dispute that he was an artist while he was alive. So again, I think it comes down to like personal perception and how we view ourselves. But again, from the outside, like if you ask me, I'd be like, no, Jarod's a mid-career. Like same with Chiffon last week. I'd be like, no, they show in galleries. They've done the gallery thing. They're professional about it. They've got a resume. They know how to, do media and all that stuff and to present themselves. And they've got the CV and all that stuff. They're doing the thing. I would call that a mid-career artist.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe that just happened for me.
Congratulations, Jarod. You've graduated. You're a mid-career artist.
Well, so, okay, going on that topic then, what do you think if you had to generalize? I know it's always difficult to generalize. I mean, like I can generalize real estate agents for the most part, and it's not probably the best opinion. But I mean, for artists, would you say they're a confident bunch or not very confident?
I mean,
it goes up and down. I think like the art sales. I mean, there's days that I feel like I'm untouchable, and then there's days where I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, who am I and what am I doing?
Well, I mean, like I go back to the idea, right? That bodybuilders and personal trainers, from people I've talked to, they're some of the most like insecure people out there, right?
Well, those are the 2 things I like, Vinnie. So you like, geez, now I'm feeling really insecure.
No, but I'm just saying, like, I'm thinking about it right now. I'm just like, I mean, is it an aspect of Jarod being humble, or other artists we've been on here humble, or is it more of insecurities? And is that maybe a common theme throughout like the art industry? Like, I
think it's just a gray area. Like art is an industry where there are no hard and fast rules like there are in other industries. So like there's no criteria of like, if you've done this, then you fall under this category. You've done this. It's like you make art or you don't make art.
Yeah.
If you make art, you're an artist. If you're selling art, you're selling art. If you're not selling art, well, you could sell, it comes down to personal perception, how you view things, how you choose to approach it, how you choose to present it, I think. What about you?
Yeah. And I've never tried to find out what that answer is. I've never looked. I've never cared. I've never even used emerging like in my vocabulary, but maybe 3 times. So yeah, I'm not trying to be in a category. I guess I just never thought about it. I think I'm pretty confident for outside of art and stuff, but I think I follow a lot of artists that are just skyrocketing and are doing so well that I base my stuff off of theirs, and they might be 50, 60 years old, and they've been doing it, for, the most of their life. So I kind of set like a higher standard of people that have been doing it way longer than me. And those are kind of who I look up to. I don't, the days are over. Like maybe back in the day, if I was showing with somebody that I didn't think was good, I may have thought in my head, like that guy's no good, but like, I guess now that I'm older and more mature, it's like, if I'm next to somebody at the gallery who I don't think is good, I'm like, well, they're in here. At least they're doing it. At least they're trying. I just have a nicer perspective on it. At least you're trying, you know. And so,
do you think that's because you have the ability to survive? Like, you know where your paycheck coming from, or you think it's something else?
who me or them?
No, you. Like, I mean, like it's. I mean, I think the idea that we're kind of like, and I think it's semi kind of, I guess, not jealousy, but sometimes it comes from a fear, right? That we're kind of like judgmental on other people because that's the worst, so that we can see it ourselves like that. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be mean to anybody. I think maybe I was a little bit mean back in the day, and I'm just nicer now. But and I'm just not going to. Who am I to say that? So I don't do that. And someone walks by my stuff at a gallery and be like, "That shit sucks." I'm like, look at that fucking guy. How did he get in there? You know. So it's the same thing. It is what it is. But I definitely go off paycheck too. I mean, this year I did better than I've ever done in my entire life. I mean, it was literally 3 times what it was for the last 10 years, every single year or whatever. So it's still not enough. And that's definitely where my mind is. Talking about being mid-career, blah, blah, blah. The difference of like a month of selling 12 paintings and then a month of 0 or even 1. I mean, it's just like, whatever. I mean, the way I feel after selling, and we sold 15 paintings a few months ago, or right before the summer. So it was a while ago, I guess. But I mean, that's never happened to me. And how I felt then was like, dude, just like Carini talks about, just being, I'm going to be a millionaire. This shit's going great now. Look at me. And then 4 months of summer are too hot out here for anybody to go walking around, go to galleries. So there was only a couple sales, So that's kind of how I shouldn't probably base it off that, but that's, as far as success goes, I kind of go off of money, like I'm so used to not having it for so long doing this,
Well, and Vinnie, going back to what you were asking, I think it's definitely a confidence thing in many ways, because earlier on in my career, when maybe I was more insecure about my work or unsure of myself, I found myself more judgmental of other artists and what they were doing, of like what I deemed the quality of the work or the skill level exhibited or the quality of the materials they were using. And as I matured and I grew more confident with my own abilities in who I am and the fact that I'm just pursuing my own journey and there's no right or wrong way to do it, I stopped judging other artists. And I feel like that made me a better person, because other artists are not my competition, but for a long time, because of my own insecurities, I was looking at them like that and I was judging them like that. And even the other day, I shared like a little milestone, and I know it was just jokingly, but I shared a little milestone of like, oh, I hit so many followers on Instagram. And Jarod replied with, oh, well, I only have so many. But then I replied back, I'm like, well, hey, you kicked my ass in the sales though, this like past month, this past year. So it's a very funny thing, like the perception of, because Jarod talked about like looking at other artists who's really killing it. And so, there's different ways to be successful and different ways to grow. Like I may be doing okay on the social media right now, but Jarod's killing it with the sales and stuff. And, so sometimes social media and what we think other people are doing isn't the best gauge. And we need to kind of really just focus on our own growth and our baby steps, because it can be deceiving, the other thing Jarod pointed out was, his number of followers. But then I had to point out that I have like 12,000 posts on my page. So it's like, when you have 12,000 posts versus like 100 posts, it's like,
Yeah, I think mine's 40. I think mine I looked at it and I think it said 42. But again, any of those 600 followers or whoever they are, probably my family and my friends have never bought anything. So I go back and forth to social media all the time. I'm like, I'm not going to just not do it, but it's probably not doing anything for me. I have it. And now if I can find galleries on there or message them or try and get my name, liking all their shit or commenting and seeing what other artists are doing, but that can definitely bite you in the ass. I mean, you see some guy in LA who's younger than me and he's making millions of dollars and you're like, with spray paint, and you're like, God damn. So sometimes it's bad, Yeah,
you definitely need to be careful with the social media. And the truth is, and the other misconception about art and being an artist is that this is all we like. I paint all day, and Jarod, that you paint all day. Where the reality is that there's sometimes days or weeks that I don't paint at all. because I'm focusing on the business side of things. I'm having to do the social media and all that stuff and all the things that are entailed with the behind the scenes business side of things.
Yeah. And there's also times that you don't need to paint. Unless you got tons of material and you got the time to do it, then great. But, you know, I've got 3 galleries filled with stuff, and I've got 20 paintings sitting in the studio, in my garage, that may not even come back to life. Like, they didn't work in the gallery for 6 months. So I went and got them. Now they're in my studio, and I gave him all the new stuff that now I really like. And so is that stuff even going to sell again? Am I going to, you know, like, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to paint over it?
That's a big question too, because somebody told me that the other day because I shared some older work and they were like, dude, if you have anything that sits for longer than like 6 months, you need to paint over it. And I don't think that there's a right or wrong way to do things. I think it comes down to your journey. But I have had pieces that didn't sell for sometimes like a decade and then sell for 5 figures or like, you know, substantial 5 figures. So if I feel like it's a good piece and the story has been told and I feel like in time it will be appreciated, I'm not going to paint over it. But it does, like the stuff behind me right now. You know, I have racks and racks of paintings. And you know, I was talking about when I first met you, 2013-ish, I was making a lot of big work then because I didn't have a lot of big work. Mm-hmm. And it was wonderful to do. It was liberating. It was nice. I feel like I don't think that making big work necessarily makes you a better artist per se, but it kind of conveys a confidence or an air of confidence of like, oh, I make big stuff. And it changes the perception on the outside, I think. And the other thing is if you make big pieces that are $20,000, you can potentially sell big pieces that are $20,000. If you don't have anything big that is priced at $20,000, how can you sell something that is $20,000? But now, because of spatial limitations, I'm working a lot smaller. And that goes back to what you were asking, Vinnie. I'm having to kind of cater to the market right now and what people are buying because of the spatial limitations and because of the economy and because of what people are spending. And I'm curious if like the real estate is like that too. Like if you have to change like your approach or what you represent when the economy changes or when there's spikes in the real estate market.
The one thing that changes is I mean, there's definitely the style of properties are out there. Like, I mean, back in the day, 2007, 08, 06, that kind of time frame of the foreclosures. It's like that, right? When people were getting massive amount of like bank-owned properties, right? So a knowledge base for that kind of stuff kind of changes. But I mean, end of the day, I mean, it's traditional sales for the most part, unless you those outlier situations. But yeah, nothing I think too drastic, or at least for the last couple of years, I think too drastic on that.
And since you asked us about like the stages of artists with the emerging, the mid-career, and the established, are there categories like that in your industry? Because I know that like there are a lot of people out, like there's a lot of people out there that say they're an artist, and I'm not saying anybody's not, but there are, you know, there's levels of artists, people that do it for fun, people do it for hobby, people that do it for a living, people that do it high level professional. And same thing with real estate. Like there's people that just got their license as a side thing, and then there's people that, so what do you think?
Well, we talked about the confidence thing, right? Confidence thing about, or whatever it was for, that's one thing that most realtors are not missing, right? They sold a house 2 years ago and they're going to post all day long about how their career is doing fantastic out there. Right. So it's,
so they can hold on to that confidence though. I mean, that's a good thing. Like, I want to be able to hold on to that confidence.
It's very impressive. I find it very impressive. I mean, like how some of these people can do that in my field. But I mean, you fake it till they make it. The funny thing is, you talked about basically social media, right? There's this idea, and I haven't looked at the stats, but I always hear people talk about it, where you see these very attractive females that are in real estate, and they have a massive amount of following, but then you look up their numbers, and they don't have basically that many closes, right? Yeah. And so it's same kind of idea, right? It's like I always looked at social media as kind of like a business card, right? Because I don't get a lot of business off of like my social media. But when I'm going to an appointment or trying to beat someone out for another appointment, they can look at my social media and they go, okay, that's actually good. They're a legit person, right? So that's at least the way I look at it for the most part.
Well, I think for artists, it's an opportunity to create a resume, to create a portfolio. If you don't have a gallery yet or you haven't shown your work, It's a place for you to display your work for free, where it can potentially be seen by thousands, if not many thousands or millions of people. And far too often I hear artists say like, oh, well, I'm not ready to share stuff, or, and if you're not ready to share something, what I would encourage you to do is just share like some behind the scenes process stuff, like a detail shot, or like your hand, like with just a brush stroke or something. There's no reason you can't start just building it up, and it'll help you start building that confidence to show your work. But the sooner you get started, the sooner you can move ahead. And I feel the same thing in regards to showing your work. Like maybe you can't get into a gallery right away, but you can contact your local business, or you can contact your buddy and you can show in a garage, do a little weekend thing, and then you graduate up to showing at one of the neighborhood coffee shops or something like that. And then as your confidence grows, then you present it to a gallery, maybe a little boutique gallery, and then you build up more confidence, and then you approach, a bigger gallery and a bigger gallery, and at some point maybe you go after like a blue chip gallery. I mean, was it a similar type of journey for you, Jarod, in terms of like the growth or the development?
Yeah, dude, I was the coffee shop guy, the salon guy. My first actual show was at a salon that, I don't know, a friend cut hair there, and she was like, they're putting up new artists every couple months, and then we have an art show and blah, blah, blah. And ended up selling like everything. And I just made
salons do really well.
Yeah, I mean, and they were priced at, from $50 to $250.
Hey, sale's a sale.
But it was a lot, that was the very first thing that I did. And right before that was always looking on, like, I don't know, Craigslist or something, if there was cafes looking for artists, or and then you have to show them your stuff, and then they'd say, all right, we'll put you in March, or and never really any sales. But I kind of had some friends that owned restaurants and bars, and then I was kind of going that route. I'm like, hey, just put these up, and did make some sales from that. But it was a couple years of that before reaching out to like Alexander and getting in there. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty far-fetched. Always got really good feedback at these, like a small group show at some weird place. There'd be people that walk in and be like, man, this is good. I mean, and again, it was like quality. I just knew, I worked at Blick, and I knew like everything that I should be using. I don't know, just maybe compared to the other artists, they were using, skinnier stretcher bars, or just not presentable stuff. And I just always went a little bit above and beyond to make sure it was nice, and then just had good feedback, and that's kind of what gave me the confidence to keep going with it, and friends and family buying shit for, whether it was $100 or whatever, that's what kept me going. But yeah, I definitely started from that, that spot that most people do.
And there's some truth to something you said there about when you worked at Blick and the materials and stuff, because I went to Loyola Marymount and I apprenticed under Jane Brucker and Roland Reese, a very well-known artist. He's done a lot of museum shows. He passed away in 2020, but he was a very important historical figure in the art world. And I learned a lot about process and quality of materials and whatnot, and taking pride in what you do. And I think that when you take pride in what you do, from the ground up, from the base work, from the stretcher bars that you use to the paint you use. Now, I understand completely, not all of us have the resources to get a bunch of supplies. But when you do take pride in those base layers, in that initial step, it sets a strong foundation. And I think it helps a lot with the confidence in terms of presentation. Like working with professional grade materials forced me to look at myself and treat myself as a professional, even when I wasn't entirely confident in what I was doing, I think.
Yeah, if you can pretend, if you could tell yourself, yeah, I'm a professional, I'm at least going to do step by step the way that they would start off. And I've seen you do it. I think I don't know if you have maybe a little OCD, or if you have something like that, where I've seen the beginning of a painting where you are just the way you gesso the first couple layers that you do are just so perfect. And
yeah, when they don't need to be.
They don't need to be.
Yeah,
And
I've done a lot of talks on that. And so, yes, I'm neurodivergent. I have Tourette's. And so with Tourette's comes OCD and whatnot. And my signature brushstroke was actually kind of me leaning into the Tourette's and just setting myself free. But that's why a lot of times people look at my stroke and they think that it's mechanical or it's done by a machine or a device, but it's all freehand. But it's just using my neurological disability as a tool, as my voice. But I talk a lot on the demo videos I do. And I did one recently where I said, it's not that important necessarily that this step be perfect or that it be pristine or clean. But when you take pride in what you do from the early stages, it kind of changes everything for you.
Yeah. You kind of,
I'm a big believer in that. You
got to start that way. And then that sets you up, you know, to at least appreciate it where, you know, I'll admit I'm really messy. And so when I see another artist doing that, I'm like, man, that's so nice. I mean, if you went and looked at my garage that I paint in, there's paint everywhere. I mean, it's just a mess in there. I do have everything set up perfectly, but there's paint everywhere. Every piece of clothes that I own, you know, it's not like, oh, I better go change before I go out there and do stuff. So,
same.
Everything's got paint on it. Brand new shoes. I'm like, oh shit, you know, that was dumb. But anyway, I did notice that, and I've always noticed about you that everything is done that way, and that's great because I went from being very messy to I'm still a little messy, but you know those first couple steps are important. And I mean, I used to not even gesso stuff. If whatever paint I had or bucket of water with brushes in it that was kind of murky, I'm like, all right, this will be the beginning layer, and would paint the canvas with that. You know, like there's a reason to use gesso, and as soon as you start using wood panels, like that's all I do now. And I'll put tape on top of, I'll do a couple layers of paint, and if I didn't do it the right way and I pull the tape off, it rips off a layer of paint. So you have to use gesso. You have to do it the right way, and you find out the hard way, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's labor intensive, and, you know, you can just buy the pre-primed or prepared stuff from the stores, but it's generally not the same quality. And I feel like when you give the tender loving care to your work, that it does add value to it, and it allows you to justify pricing your work at respectable rates. And I think that galleries appreciate it, and I think that collectors do notice those things.
Yeah, I mean, I build every single wood panel. You know, everything I wrote off this year for taxes was all from Home Depot. You know, I mean, I buy paint and stuff from the you know, from the art store, but it's all Home Depot. It's all wood, and then so. You know, you spend just as much time cutting all the wood perfectly, make sure it's all nice, sanding it, you know, I mean, it takes forever, you know, and people don't get that either. They just, you know, they think you're just buying it from somewhere or whatever. And from the actual start to plugging in your saw and getting the wood and doing that from start to finish is definitely makes you feel, you know, better at the end when it's all complete, you know?
And Vinnie, I would correlate this with, like, I would imagine when you have to do like an open house or something like that, and you got to go make sure that everything is prepared and clean, and there's a certain presentation to it so that it's inviting for people coming in so that they will want to take it home and make it their home.
No, I hear you saying. I mean, it's I guess it would be a safe zone, right? I mean, the same thing, like, I guess if you're like a baseball player, right? You have these quirks that you probably do before you get into the batter's box, right? I mean, like superstitious kind of thing. That's what it kind of sounds like. I mean, at least for your painting, Michael, like the strokes you do, the smooth strokes before you actually get into like the nitty gritty or the anger of it all. It basically kind of gets.
I would describe it more like the warm up or the practice type of thing. It's like you're easing into it. It's like, if you're going to go like try to bench press 315, you're probably not going to just go put 3 plates on right away. You're going to kind of warm up and ease into it. And I describe art in fitness terms a lot, because I think that a lot of times, like, maybe you're not in the mind state of like, oh, I'm going to go do a really elaborate fancy painting that's going to go in a gallery for $10,000. Like, that's jumping way too far ahead. You think, okay, we're going to paint today. What am I going to do? Okay, let's ease into this. Let's warm up. Let's try to coax this so that it's not anxiety ridden or fueled. So you kind of ease into it and you start to open up the energy and the flow. And then, okay, now I got that done. Now I can move into this. And you gradually get more and more intense and kind of move into it. But it's like you just kind of you don't just dive in completely. You just kind of want to warm yourself into it.
Yeah. If you forget that space of that's called painting, and that's why we're doing it, because it feels good, and that's why we're artists, you know. So if you're just thinking the long run of selling this $10,000 painting, and I'm going to just do what I did with the last one and change the colors, like that's, you know, it's very easy to do, but that space of the hours that it takes to do that one, and all the layers and stuff. I mean, that's what we live for, is painting a whole bunch of stuff, and now it's wet. Now I got to go do something else for a little bit. When I come back to that, here's another layer. You know, those are what we like about it. You know what I mean?
So the action is, because I mean, I used to do film, right? And it's been a long time since I do that. It was, I think, more of the finished product that I would get excited about. The actions of putting the piece together, not so much. I mean, I had other stuff going on and music going on. It wasn't like kind of like a love to it. But I guess when you're doing the actual painting, that's where you find the emotional enjoyment, not for the finished product.
Yeah, because what I'm seeing is the movie that what you get to see at the end after what you've made, or other people, they get to see the entire movie. And when someone sees our painting on the wall, that's all they see. So I see the movie. They don't get to see the movie, but I get to see the movie. So what you liked about seeing the movie, that's what I get to do. That's what we get to do. You know what I mean? And then the final product is definitely when you decide something's actually done. Yeah, it's a pretty good feeling. You know what I mean?
I feel like when I am moving more work and when I am doing better is when I am sharing the making of the work with the collect. Like, I was talking to a gallery owner today, and I said, I have a couple of my sales recently were because at one of the openings, somebody was looking at my work, and I started talking to them, and within 5 minutes it was closed. But it's because they kind of liked the finished product. But then once I shared the experience, like the buildup of it and all the things that went into it, like that's what made the connection. So I'm a big believer that the way to increase the sales is to increase the emotional connection and to share more of the journey and the process and what goes into it. Now, some people may just be like, I don't want to know. I just want to see it up on the wall. I like the way it looks. I don't want to get emotionally invested beyond that. And that's fine. But like for me and my demographic, my audience, they like the connection. They like the emotion. And so I'm much better at closing the deals when I can get in there into the deep stuff.
Okay, I guess going back to Jared's point, right? The emotional or the emotional aspect of it, or the love of it, happens more so. And I guess using the analogy, right? The movie happened in the action compared to basically the finished product, right? Yeah, so do you think there's gonna be a point, or is there galleries that like allow you to like put a TV next to the art to show like a time lapse of you making the art? Is that like
not next to it per se, but like I've been talking to my galleries more about providing more of that behind the scenes content through like the email blasts or like a story next to it, because I think it adds that layer to it. But like for me, to answer what you were asking, Vinny, I like the finished once the finished piece is done, I don't want to say it's eternal, because anything physical can be destroyed. Like I've sacrificed art by fire and collected the ashes and whatnot to exhibit the fact that anything physical is temporary. But there's this sense of eternal. There's an image in mind that I can go back to, especially if you photograph it and share it on social media or something like that. But that aspect of it is eternal. But what you will not get back is that process. Like, so I very much enjoy the process. I would say I value it as much as the finished product. But once I've reached the stage of it being finished, that process part is kind of I don't want to say lost in a negative sense, but like the beauty of it is that it is not as eternal as the finished piece, if that makes sense.
So no one's pulling off like a QR code or something like that on the actual piece, and then you can go to like some kind of like Google in the cloud video of like how you did that. I mean, is an artist doing that right now? Or is that like not like a thing? Or
no, I've done that. I've done physical NFTs before where you could scan the painting and there was a chip in it, and it would activate on your phone and show you an experience of like the piece being made.
But not the experience. I'm talking more about the work that you put into the work, right? Because you're like you talked about, and sorry, Jared, I know I'm cutting you off. Like you're talking about Michael, like you're telling the story when you're there, but like Jared, he has 3 galleries, right? So he can't be there to tell the story for each piece, right? So it's like having something in there that people can see the action that went into the piece, so they can feel that emotion and then want it even more. So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, and you could do that if you had a film crew.
Yeah.
But here's the problem: if you go into a gallery and you see 10 of my pieces, I didn't have the time to film the start to finish to each piece. So you could do it with one, you know.
Yeah, it's the this is where the limitation of resources comes in.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be the difference of a sale or not. That's also something you could put, you know. Yeah, I don't know, but you know, they also can look at your Instagram, and as long as you have some good videos on there and stuff like that, they can see that. But I don't know if it goes that deep that someone is watching the video and going, "Holy shit, I got to buy this piece. This guy knows how to build it from start to finish," and you know, a lot went into this. I'm sure it would have. It's possible, but it's, you know, that's not the determining sale. You know what I mean?
Well, it could be for the person that buys it, but the truth is for every painting we sell, we only need one person to want to buy it out of billions and billions of people. But you're right, because it's like, what are the odds of getting that person that wants to buy it in front of it? Because there are going to be some people that are more interested in how it's made than the final product. But Jared is very right. Like the average person walking in, are they going to be all that interested in seeing how the sausage is made? Probably not.
Well, it's like I mean, I would think, right? I mean, like, and the only paintings and stuff that I've purchased have been kind of like, they grabbed my attention, right? It was simply quick. I didn't know the artist. I didn't care who the artist was. I just liked the piece, right? And I just went for it, right? But I could see, right, if you have a lot of get-togethers at your house, right, and you wanted to talk up your arts, especially if you're like a newbie kind of thing, you could be like, "Oh, you see that piece right there? Look at this time lapse. Like, watch this time lapse," and then get the people excited about it. Or I mean, or you just try to like get them buffed up on the name. I would guess if someone's really trying to show off like this whole like Instagram world that we live in, right? I don't know.
Well, so I did a commission set for a couple, and it was those physical NFTs. So it was 2 pieces. One was predominantly white with black and gold. The other was predominantly black with white and gold. And they were like infinity symbols. And they were large pieces, like almost 3 foot by 5 foot each, frames. And they had the QR codes. And they actually had, I did brushed gold QR codes that went next to the paintings. And you could scan those and step back and capture the painting in the viewfinder. And there was music, and it would transition into the other painting. And so it very much was like a, hey, dinner party, hey, come look at this art experience that I have type of thing. But again, cool. You know, it's fun to do, and it's great for, you know, big collectors that have the money to drop. But like with one of the things Jared kind of pointed out, it's like when you do this for a living, you only have so much time. And it's like you have to choose, like, do you spend the time on social media? Do you spend the time documenting the endless process? And 90% of my process is me swearing at my paintings and questioning, you know, like, oh, like how much more can I take? So, you know, like you got to choose where to give the time and the energy, and it gets tough, you know. So just as artists, we grow, we learn, we make our decisions, and
yeah,
the best.
Well, the other problem is, you know, I don't I'm painting in the garage, so there's also my lawnmower that may be in the background, you know, like some of the best ones I see are these artists who are doing so well that they have this huge studio, all these white walls, and they're doing this.
I want one of those.
Yeah. And it's like, man, you know, how are these people doing this? And those are the artists that have the great videos. I mean, every single video has perfect lighting. Everything's good.
Great camera, great lighting, big open space. It's airy.
But I think I would lean
panning slow. Like,
but I would lean more towards like the one that has like the the lawnmower in the garage, right? Because it seems more real. It was a real one instead of like the shiny object. I mean, I don't know, like
yeah, and some will, you know.
And yeah, do you want your who do you want to impress? I want the next gallery to, if they see a video, that they see these perfect shots and they don't see the lawnmower. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I go back and forth. Do you want to be real, or do you want to look like you're doing a little bit better? You know, it's like that's a hard fine line.
It is hard, and ultimately at the end of the day, because I agree with you. Like, I would love to create some clean videos, but that's not my reality. Like, these days I work in half of a small bedroom. I have 4 cats. I have a roommate, and I have stuffed animals all over my room as a almost 40-year-old man, and that's just the reality of my life.
Dang.
You know, that's what I show because that's me. But, you know, is a gallery going to want that? Maybe yes, maybe no. But the truth is that if a gallery is not going to want to work with me for who I authentically am, it's probably not a good relationship for me, because at this stage in my career, because I've had bad relationships with galleries, I want to work with people that want to work with the authentic and real me, because that is the best me. And so we only have a few more minutes. So there were a couple things I wanted to kind of touch upon that a little bit, the good, bad relationships, Jared. And then I also wanted to go into one of your other questions, if we have time, which was changing your style for different galleries. So those were the couple things that I thought maybe we could touch upon before we have to part ways.
Yeah. The reason why I thought of that was because I just did that. I came out here and for the last year, had this palette and this style that I was doing. And it's been working. In the last 4 months, I got in this new gallery. He hadn't sold anything, and we kind of had this conversation of trying something new, maybe something not so busy. So I took kind of a small little piece of the busy work, like behind us, and I just took like a small little block and I started doing that. He said, let's focus on maybe these colors. And so I completely changed everything and just did that. I know you have a couple different styles too. I'm not going to go really far-fetched. I mean, it's still going to be my stuff, but I do believe different galleries are going to sell different stuff. And so as long as you stick within your style, and just change colors or whatever it is, or simplify a little, piece. I think that would work. I'd like to hear what you guys have, would think about that, but that was something I just did,
So your philosophy is kind of bending and working within the realm of your style, but not breaking.
And I will. Me as who I am as an artist, I'll change a little bit. I'm not stuck. I know there's probably a lot of artists that are just like, this is me. This is what I'm going to do. I don't care if you like it. I have no problem. I mean, I had a great time using other colors that maybe I wasn't going to use,
But you're talking about like maybe subtle variances in colors and things like that. But like somebody's not saying, hey, Jared, we think your work would do really well if you started doing paintings of cows or something like that.
Yeah, no.
So are you saying the gallery, or more so the demographic that the gallery pushes their content out to?
Well, it's both, because the gallery, I looked around when he told me that, hey, let's stick with like red, blue, yellow, like let's stick with those colors. Right. When I started doing this new little setup for him, I brought him in yesterday, and I looked around, and he still had my old stuff on the wall. It was like kind of deserty colors, like turquoise and lots of white and stuff. And I looked around, and he had yellow, red, blue, like a bunch of different artists, and that's what he normally sells. So that's what he told me to do, and we'll see how it works. But my stuff was definitely stood out differently than everything else. And so sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing. But
And it's interesting too, because there is this quality of regionalism as it pertains to colors, where certain regions, like maybe the Midwest, maybe a certain color palette's more popular. Like one of my galleries contacted me the other day and they said, hey, we're talking to a big collector and they're looking at a couple pieces. They're looking at a few of yours. What do you have in this size range? And they said, but not pink. And they had to say that because they know that I love working with pink, but not everybody loves pink. So there was like a general color palette that they were looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and I also, most of my work that I sell with, like, say, Art Studio 101 is a PO from them that I'm doing a commission of 12 pieces or 10 pieces or whatever it is, 2 pieces. And they'll literally give me the colors of the place, and they'll give me like 3 of my paintings that they liked. And they'll say, we want this from this painting, this. I mean, it'll be pretty particular in some ways. And then I'm just painting that, I'm painting what they told me to paint. It's still my style, but I may not have painted it, but it was a commission and that's what they wanted. So I've also done that so many times that I don't have this little heartbreak of, sticking with my stuff. You want red, I'll give you red. I want money too. So let's go, that's.
Yeah. But again, I mean, you're still working within your style because you kind of have the same policy that I do, I think, and same approach too, because my commissions, the way that I work is I will work within my styles, my bodies of work, but you can tell me like, hey, I like your boy in the box style, but I want it to be this size and I want this color palette. And I'm like, size and color palette in that style? Cool, no problem, because it's within the realm of what I do. And hey, it's basically already sold. So yeah, we can work in whatever color palette you want and whatever size. And I almost prefer it sometimes. And I would love to be loaded up with more commissions because it's like, you got the work lined up. You know what the colors need to be. Like, it takes some of the questions off your plate, which sometimes as an artist, you can be like, okay, I've got a lot of stuff to do. And sometimes when you have a lot of stuff to do, it makes it a little easier to just have some of that stuff taken out of the equation for you.
Yeah. Are you really that agreeable, Michael? I'm pretty sure a lot of our conversations, when you've talked to me about your conversation with galleries, it hasn't been that agreeable.
No, for commissions, my rules are like, I'm not going to, if somebody asks me again, like, will you paint my dog? Like, no, I used to do the dog paintings. I don't do the dog paintings anymore. I don't want to do the dog paintings. I work within my styles. That's what it is. I do have a policy on my commissions where, because my style is so loose and abstract, it's like Jarod works with shapes in a certain particular way. So you have a pretty good idea, I think, more so than with me, because of my style of just capturing energy. Sometimes it looks very different. And so I tell people, if I do a commission for you and you don't like it, I will do a new piece and you can choose the new piece instead. So it's like you can have a plan B of sort of if you're not happy with the first one that comes out.
Yeah, I pretty much know exactly what they're going to want, because it's just like this background. They want this little small piece over here and that right there. It's like, I know exactly what to do, can't really go wrong.
So it's a little more formulaic.
Yeah.
Does it ever get boring?
I mean, yeah, that's why I changed it up.
Checks?
Huh? I didn't. What did you say, Michael?
I said cashing checks. Does that get boring?
Does that ever get boring? Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
But his hand sometimes hurts from all the signing, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's no, it gets boring. I mean, I'm all over the place. I would love to paint 10
Well, Jarod, I don't really feel too bad for you right now.
No, I definitely get bored. I mean, that's with everything I do. Kind of the ADD. I'm bored of something, and it's like, no, you need to stick with it. You're doing well with this, and I've already tried to move on to like the new Rothko inspired pieces that I've been doing, and we don't even know if those are going to sell. And if those do sell, I mean, I'm going to be moving on to the to that pretty quick.
I wanted to ask you, because I have sort of like just like me, I have several bodies of work, and as I've moved along further in my career, I sort of try to fill in the repertoire and kind of balance things out, blend them together. But I have noticed kind of the same with you. Like, you have a style of work, but you have expanded. You've tried new things. The Rothko thing that's a newer thing for you. Like, thinking that you probably already sold a bunch of works with that collection.
I haven't done any of that yet. I just made them for the new gallery. I did used to kind of paint with with that style. That's kind of how I started my abstract journey, was that kind of stuff. But I'm definitely using bolder colors and stuff now. But no, I haven't. I mean, I haven't sold anything yet. It was the gallery was asking for that. So I made them. Or I decided to make the Rothko stuff. But again, doing exactly what I have been doing, I just took this blue and this orange, and instead of making this huge blue and orange and white, and I just made a smaller portion of what I was kind of doing, So,
well, with the tie to art history, I'm thinking my guess would be that those will do very well. So I'm curious to see if they do.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, they're what's the word? They're not notice so bad with my vocabulary tonight, sorry. What familiar, they're familiar. So yeah. But if you like the colors and you've almost seen this before, you're like, oh wow, maybe you don't realize it, but it's familiar.
Yeah, like subconscious, you'd be like, where have I seen something like that before?
Yeah. So we'll see if it works.
So Jarod, where are the galleries that people can see you at right now? And where can people find you on social media to take a closer look at your work?
On social media, I'm JarodFarverStudios on Instagram. And then I do have a website, JarodFarverStudios.com. And you can find my work here in Phoenix at Art Studio 101. And then in Scottsdale at Xanadu Gallery, it starts with an X. And then SD Art Advisory in San Diego. And that's about it right now. Trying to be a good husband and a good dad. I mean, it's just so hard.
Well, I don't have to worry about that. I get to run around living a life of chaos out here in San Diego. So,
oh man.
But Jarod, I want to thank you for joining us, and I'm sure that we will have you on again sometime in the future. But Vinnie, do you have something for us?
Yeah, so just wanted to give updated on the last episode. We talked about that this week because we do it live, and then the podcast comes on about a week later or so, right? So we talked about last episode that we were going to have 2 episodes this week. We had, I think it was Sonia. She had to push it off, so she's gonna be later on down the year. But next week, on Thursday at 3:00, we're gonna have Alicia Puig. Am I saying right?
I have to verify how to say the last name, but I know she's with PXP Contemporary, and that is an online focused gallery. I know she's also connected with Create Magazine, which is a very big art publication. But I'm very curious to talk to her, and I'm sure, Jarod, this might be an interesting one for you too. Online galleries and their approach, because we are moving into more and more of a digital world, and it's getting harder and harder for brick and mortar galleries to continue to operate. And I actually looked into this gallery because the appeal for an online gallery for me is that I don't have to worry about shipping the artwork there until it's sold, and they also take a smaller percentage.
What's the name of it?
It's PXP Contemporary.
Oh, okay.
So it'll also be a fun talk because they were doing an artist call for looking for new artists to work with, and I was rejected. So we will get to talk a little bit about that. Like, and again, I don't take it personally, and I've talked about this before. Getting a rejection from a gallery, it's not an indication that your work isn't enough or anything like that. It might just be not the right timing. Maybe they know how to push you. Maybe they're looking for different sizes. Maybe they were looking for work that was less expensive than mine. But I think that it will be fun to have that conversation because I know they do a lot of artist support stuff too. So I feel like it'll be a good door to open the dialogue.
Okay, Michael, I know you're not dating right now. And would you rather get rejected by an art gallery or by a woman?
Okay, so I am not fazed by rejection from art galleries. I don't date anymore, but I, for whatever reason, and I would be completely candid about this, take that much more personally the rejection from a person. But that's kind of why I don't do it anymore. It was just not a healthy thing for me. And my focus, my main relationship, and I did a couple reels about this, like I'm not really available for a relationship with the person because I'm already in a relationship with my art. So it was never really going to work for me in a relationship with a person because I will always come back to the art and I'm just not willing to put somebody else first. So it may be selfish, but I am also aware of that. And for that reason, I do not put myself in the position of putting somebody else in that position.
Yeah, maybe down the road you'll find somebody. You know, right now you focus on art. So.
Don't want it. I can get further. I want to see how far I can go with the art.
Yeah, and again, I would love to do it again. I could talk to you guys forever. I'll call Michael for like one question. We're on the phone for an hour. I did want to say one thing. I was watching some of your guys' past episodes, and I saw Nick Boltman. And his first, they said, you know, introduce yourself. Nick Bolton, I live in Gilbert, Arizona. And I was like, holy shit. So I got on his Instagram and just messaged him, hey, I also live in Gilbert, and I just wanted to say what's up. And, you know, I was going to say Phoenix because nobody knows where Gilbert is. We're just south of Phoenix, and it's just a great little spot. But anyway, I just thought that was kind of cool. I was going to touch on that for a minute. And he replied back, hey, I said, you know, maybe we'll cross paths, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And then I looked at his followers and what he's got going on. I was like, God damn, dude.
So Jared, did you know that he's actually a younger, newer artist? He's only been doing it for a couple years and just had his first gallery show.
That's wild, dude. That's like shows you anything can happen, dude.
Yeah, so you were kind of like upset at me for hitting the 32 on Instagram. Dude's at like almost 300,000 on Instagram and has only been doing it for a few, but no jealousy. You know, I respect what he's done and that he's reached it and that he's gotten to where he is. You know, he's done something right. So I can only respect that. It's
good to know them. It's not always looking up at the older generation that have been doing it forever. Maybe this guy just talking to him and getting to know him could benefit you or me or whatever, you know? So you got to, it is what it is. It's great. It's always good when someone's succeeding. So.
And Vinnie and I were talking about this earlier today and recently too, is that the podcast is very much a networking opportunity. It's not just an opportunity for us to talk to each other, but for Vinnie to get to know the guests on a personal level, maybe work with them, and for the guests to work with each other and to work off of each other. So I love hearing that you saw Nick on there and reached out because it shows that maybe we're doing something right.
I just followed. I mean, I literally just followed, and I'm not going to remember names, but like 4 people that I had no idea who they were that you guys had on. The girl that was doing, maybe she was just on last. She's in Sparks as well. I think she does the animals and stuff.
Yes.
I mean, I had no idea who she was. I don't know if I would have ever known. So, you know, now I follow her. You know, and now Nick and Jason. I mean, Jason, I didn't know who he was. He was great on the podcast, you know.
So for people listening right now, if there is an artist that you stalk, right? Because I know Michael at least has some stalkers. I'm not sure. Maybe Jared has some stalkers. You do. Come on, be here for the live part of it, and comment on the YouTube. Ask your questions live when they're being recorded, so they have to answer the question.
Yeah,
I get stalked for all the wrong reasons, though. Like, I want people to stalk me for my art, but instead I get all the weird art daddy shit.
Well, you got to quit posting those 315 bench press videos, dude.
Yeah. I say that for the OnlyFans page these days, but I'm just not building the audience fast enough. It's like Vinnie said, you know, and we talked about this with our guest, Autumn. It's the audience for a man versus a woman on these platforms and the way that they present these things. It's very different. Like, I mean, I don't think that I'm good looking per se, or that I'm like, that people would want to, but like, I know how well Autumn does on these platforms, like on OnlyFans. And then like, I'm on there and I told her, I'm like, Autumn, I got up to 8 people and I'm so excited.
Yeah. You got to try, dude.
Like, good job, Michael. Like,
you got to try.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe. Please share. Go in the show notes and go find Jared.
Thank you guys so much. Good talking with you guys.
See you.
Hold on, Jared.